Hello everybody and welcome to... Oh, you already know. Court never shared for the trial of Rachel Frigga. Let us review yesterday's proceedings. There was much debate over William Frigga's inheritance. More specifically, it was unknown whether the defendant had any claim to her father's inheritance. The detail was crucial in determining whether the defendant even had a motive to commit the murder. Luckily, the victim was supposedly read earlier today, and it's now part of the public record. What were the results of the will reading, Mr. Cuthbert? William Frege was planning to leave all his assets to Jaden von Sanctus, his hopeful son-in-law. However, this was predicated on the condition that Jaden married the victim's daughter, Leif. And it's clear that Miss Leif will never follow through on this engagement. If the engagement is not made in 6 months, William Frege's assets will be divided among his 3 daughters. I see. There is no need to mention the defendant's inheritance. Correct, Your Honor. This means that the defendant did have something to gain from the victim's death. Your Honor, despite the confusion around the victim's inheritance, there is still very little physical evidence that implicates my client. May I remind you that William Frege was not telling the truth in yesterday's proceedings. That itself is extremely suspect. And William Frege was clearly not above manipulation and lying. You can't prove that she knowingly gave false testimony. I'll admit that I can't prove that. I'll also admit that there's a lack of apparent physical evidence to substantiate our case, which is why the prosecution would like to call Harold Haraldson to the stand. Lord Haraldson? The sword of spell eating clearly plays a large role in the murder, and itself is one of the few pieces of physical evidence in the case. As the gallery's curator, I believe he can further elaborate on how the sword was stolen that night. More specifically, you can find out about what he did on the night of the murder. Alright. Well, the court would definitely benefit from his insight. Bailiff, get him over here. Oh fuck, I hate doing his voice. Do I have water? I think I have water. Shit, I'm out of water. Oh no. Alright, pray for me, gamers. Of course. My name is Harold Haraldson. I am the owner and curator of Haraldson Hall of History, located in Homhereth. That's quite the alliterative occupation. Harold, could you please testify to the court about how you discovered that sort of spell eating? Can you please testify to the court about how you discovered that the sort of spell eating was stolen? If it will help. Testimony. I was keeping an eye on my gallery exhibits when I realized that my familiar had returned. Interesting. I called him telepathically, but he didn't respond. I became worried, so I went around the manor to search for him. About an hour later, I returned to the gallery and discovered that the exhibit that held the sword of spell eating was completely destroyed. The artifact was missing, so I reported the crime to the knights at the ball and they activated a discreet lockdown. Luckily, we found the sword and my familiar later that night. So he went to search for a monkey, and that's why he didn't witness the theft. Yes, the thief was probably waiting for me to leave. They must have wanted to commit the crime without anyone seeing them. Or his testimony is completely full of it. I don't know, I can't believe it. His search for Eugene must have been a cover that he's using to hide his actions that night. So how do you prove that? Is it weird that I believe him? Alright, when I realized that my familiar hadn't returned. The press? Are you referring to Eugene? Eugene? Eugene Haraldson, Your Honor. It's the name of the witness's familiar. Yes, Eugene is a spry orangutan monkey. He helps me with my day-to-day. I see. Anyways, you said that he hadn't returned. Does this mean he left you earlier than night? Yes, he always likes to explore large buildings like Frege Manor. But he usually doesn't leave for that long. Does he typically ignore you like that? Sometimes. He's a young boy, so he likes to have his privacy. I try not to pry, but I was worried what would happen if a nobler knight came across him. He usually knows not to bother people, but you never know what might happen. You left the gallery room. Yes, as I said, I was worried that something had happened to Eugene. Where did you go during your search? Eugene usually knows how to stay out of people's bedrooms, so I went downstairs and searched for him there. I checked the bathroom, sitting room, and coat room. Then I finally checked the kitchen and pantry. He might have gone there to steal some snacks. But you didn't find him in any of those places. No, I didn't. Where did you find him? If I recall correctly, the glass was completely shattered. This is despite the presence of several abjuration spells that protected it. Yes, it would have taken an extremely powerful spell to break it like that. As you saw, the glass display was shattered into shards. Unless Harold had a way to spell the magic, a powerful mage must have destroyed it. Perhaps Harold had Beatrice shatter the glass before she went to the ballroom. The artifact was missing. The sort of spell eating makes its wielder immune to magical effects. What use would the lockdown have been? Honestly, not much. The wielder would have been immune to the anti-magic fields and the spells that prevented people from leaving. But at that point, the King's Guard just wanted to activate it for good measure. Alright. The statement just now is missing some details, but what details should you ask me to elaborate on? Eugene, bro! How did you eventually find Eugene that night? After an hour of silence, he finally responded to my telepathic messages. He met up with me in the gallery before we went to search for the sword. So this would have been after the theft was reported. Yes. Would have had to pick up Eugene after he murdered Lord Frege. This must be the alibi they're using to account for the time that no one could see Eugene. Anyways, this detail could be extremely important. Please add it to your testimony, witness. Harold. Yes, of course, Harold. He says that he went around the manor to look for Eugene. Do you think he's telling the truth? Maybe, but his so-called search for Eugene gave him a good excuse to not be seen by anyone. It's a decent alibi, if not without its flaws. We just need to poke some holes in that alibi. Met up with him in the gallery room before they finally found the artifact. Oh, we already know how they found the sword, so there's no point, right? So I was hoping there'd be a back. Before they found the artifact. But here, how does the what am I where's the thing I'm looking for? I need the thing on the okay. What is there a thing on the some security? What I'm trying to show is that how would the monkey Eugene be able to telepathically communicate with Harold before they find the artifact? I'm trying to figure out, because shouldn't the anti-magic layer still be on? I'm trying to find where it says, where it talks about the anti-magic like timeline, but I can't find that. She was accounted for before. I don't know. I'm so confused on how to say what I want to say. Some of the source leading but lunacy to care and return to his business. Right. Okay. Man, I wish... I can't say what I want to say. Let's read about the sword. How did you eventually find the sword was bleeding? The King's Guard and I slowly and carefully checked each room in the manor. After about an hour, we finally found the artifact on the bed in the defendant's room. It must be where Tracker hides the sticks and that he finds. Now that you think about it, he's probably the one who sold the sword in the first place. Anyways, this detail could be extremely important. Please add it to your testimony. Harold. I think he's telling the truth. King's Guard found the spell of sword eating in the defendant's room. That is true. Artifact was missing. Is there seriously no piece of evidence about the lockdown itself? Lockdown, once activated, it creates magical barriers. Right. No, I've clicked on everything. That's silly. Return to the gallery. It's completely destroyed, that's true. Went around the manor, search him. He didn't walk around the manor. He didn't respond. Sure. Must be the Eugene bit. What do I press it on? Do I say, oh, do I just put in the lockdown system and not the time? Okay. I wanted something that said the time. That would have been a little nicer for me, but sure. Sorry, I'm being stupid. Harold, you found Eugene before you went to search for the sword of spell eating? This would mean that happened while the lockdown was still active. Am I correct? Yes. As much as I was worried about the artifact, Eugene's safety was far more important. That's the thing, Harold. You said that after hours of silence, you finally received a telepathic message back from Eugene. What? So that leaves one question. How did you communicate with Eugene telepathically if you were both within an anti-magic field? What? Harold, in response to the theft, the King's Guard activated the lockdown system to prevent anyone from leaving. That same lockdown system would have placed an anti-magic field over every inch of that manor. That field should have suppressed the telepathic abilities given to you by the familial bond. You wouldn't have been able to speak with Eugene at all. Cuthbert, are you accusing the witness of lying in his testimony? Please, Cuthbert is blowing this entire thing out of proportion. Anti-magic field is a resource-intensive spell. You can't assume that they managed to cover every inch of the manor. Especially the areas that would only be accessible to a small animal. Mr. Mora, let's assume that Eugene managed to reach some sort of blind spot in the lockdown system. The magical telepathy granted by familial bond connects two people. Even if Eugene wasn't affected by the anti-magic field, Harold certainly would be. That's very true. So how did I hear them that night? There's only one answer that makes sense, Harold. You did hear Eugene telepathically because Eugene was wielding the sword of spell eating. What? Ugh. I'm sorry, Mr. Cuthbert, but are you saying that the sword of spell eating was stolen by the witness's pet monkey? I am, Your Honor. It's the only way the witness's testimony makes sense. She doesn't have a rebuttal. You should push this while you still have a chance. Harold Haraldson, you were the one who stole the sword of spell eating, weren't you? And what reason would I have to steal something that already belongs to me? It was to take suspicion off of you, because you were the one who had William Frigga killed. You staged a robbery and used the sword of spell eating to make Eugene invisible. Then you sent him through the manor's ventilation system. Also, you could have him murder William Frigga in his study. Well done, Cuthbert. I suppose you just can't stop yourself from pursuing a lying witness. It's what I do best, Mr. Mora. Of course. Witness, do you have anything to say in your defense? It's quite obvious, but I completely refute the prosecution's allegations. He's misguided, but he's just doing his job. We're expecting this house to be hostile, like before. And you also refute your statement about Eugene telepathically speaking with you. I know better than to lie on the stand to save myself. I can't explain how it happened, but I stand behind my testimony. Eugene did telepathically contact me during the lockdown. But how did he do it? So he doesn't know how the... Okay. That's what I was thinking. Perhaps he overlooked it when he was planning the murder with Beatrice. And that's your position, Cuthbert? That the witness sent a monkey to murder William Frigga? It may sound ridiculous, but it's the only thing that makes sense. Or do you have any evidence to refute that, Mr. Mora? No, I fully and wholeheartedly agree with you, Cuthbert. Wait. Tyrion? Mr. Cuthbert, did you forget that you were prosecuting Beatrice Frigga? Your Honor, even as prosecutor, it's clear that Cuthbert just can't stop himself from finding the true culprit. Wait, I also wanted to say that the defendant conspired with the witness to commit the crime. Oh, really? And do you have any proof of this conspiracy to commit? I... Of course you don't. But, even so... But let's assume that you did have evidence to prove your statement. If this was really a plot formed by my client and the witness, what would my client even contribute to this plan? From what you said, this plot was completely carried out by Lord Haraldson and his familiar. Oh, well... The glass. He would have needed a powerful mage like the defendant to break the soul's display case and stage the robbery. So a contribution to the murder was breaking some glass. Can you prove that my client shattered the display case? And can you prove that she did so knowing that it would somehow lead to her father's death? You might have gotten a little too eager to prove Harold's guilt. The physical evidence against my client was almost non-existent in the first place. Meanwhile, it seems the prosecution has just brought forward physical evidence that implicates Lord Haraldson. Physical evidence that is supported by his own testimony. There has to be some explanation for this. Cuthbert, didn't you ask me something yesterday? If my client didn't kill the victim, then who did? I suppose I should thank you for finding the answer. Damn it, all you did was make it more difficult to prove her case. But Harold has to be involved in this. You weren't wrong about that. Only Eugene would be small enough to traverse the air vents. So isn't there anything else you can do? With the threat of indictment, Harold must be stressed. It's gotten you out of his headspot before. Maybe you can find the evidence in his mind. You can use every trick you have, Cuthbert. It won't help you. Ignore her. Calm your mind and focus the Eye of Horus on him. You will have to find something, anything that might tie the murder to Beatrice.
Naught can remain concealed.
Okay. Let's empower some eyes. I can't believe that that one of my artifacts was used to commit a murder. It's completely disrespectful to the culture and history behind it. Speaking as if he truly had no hand in this. That can't be true, can it? He didn't do it. The armbands of intellect are still missing, but I inspected it closely before the Lord's Ball. They were still there when I moved them to Frigga's Manor. Someone must have stolen it during the ball. So there's the armbands. Oops. My bad. Young Tyrion's argument makes sense. I couldn't have heard Eugene when the lockdown was active. What is going on here? Right. What? Spell eating. So the earrings of vitality while we're at it. At least the earrings of vitality were left untouched. It's one of the few artifacts that's imbued with the scale board's power. Eugene, just what were you doing that night? Did you really wield the sword, if only for a brief moment? Should have known exactly where Eugene was that night. Why would Assad say that? Okay. What else is there? Eugene, just okay. I've got myself wrapped in quite the predicament, haven't I? Oh well, I've gotten out of far worse situations. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's truly a shame that Beatrice was driven to flee from her own family. If only I'd introduced myself to her, perhaps we could have found a solution together. He doesn't know Beatrice? How? She planned the murder with him. Unless... What's going on? He's speaking as if he really had no hand in this. You can guard yourself from the Eye of Horus, but you can't lie to it. And if that's true, were you wrong about Harold's involvement? Is he really innocent? See anything, Cuthbert? Your Honor, it's clear that the prosecution has nothing left to argue. There's very little evidence implicating my client, and there's a far more likely suspect in front of us right now. Yes, I must agree, Miss Tamora. At the very least, I see no reason to prolong this trial any longer. Wait! Beatrice couldn't have personally done this. Just kind of the fact she's completely blind, she was with the two princes for most of the night. So who actually killed William Frey in his study? Think about this. The reason why he suspected her in the first place was because of what if Tracker said. Tracker's a Tracker... Whoa. My brain. Tracker's vocabulary is primitive and limited. He uses the word rat to describe small creatures that hide and act suspiciously. But even if it wasn't an actual rat, it still couldn't have been human, right? You're right. It would have been a small animal. A small animal with the strength and dexterity to traverse a small air vent while holding a sword. Tracker definitely saw some kind of animal. Was it someone else's familiar? No, he definitely saw Eugene. Right, it had to have been Eugene. And Eugene couldn't have communicated with Harold unless the sword protected both of them from the anti-magic field. But why? Did Eugene just happen to be in the hallway? That also doesn't explain why the sword of spell eating was even there. No, Tracker said that Eugene came out of the air vent on one side of the hallway, then he fled into the air vent on the other side. Even for a small monkey, those vents would be extremely cramped. He wouldn't have entered those vents out of mere curiosity. Why was Eugene in the air vents? Harold didn't do it. Harold... Eugene was not acting of their own free will. And you can't say for sure why Eugene was there. It's unlikely that Harold even knew about it. Eugene... It's unlikely that Harold even knew about it. Beatrice... Which one's Beatrice? Is Beatrice a girl that we're accusing of murder? All the Fregas, they get caught up. Okay, so Beatrice... Eugene... Harold, Beatrice, Eugene was acting... Eugene was acting of his own free will? That's the explanation that makes no sense. No, it's not. Someone, like, mind-possessed him. But how and why? Harold's the only person that is naturally connected to Eugene, and even if Beatrice somehow got to Eugene to follow her orders, it was probably Eris, right? I thought she'd be more of an endgame thing, but that makes sense. If Eris seems like the only one who could, like, mind control people. She would have been able to direct his actions telepathically. Beatrice couldn't use any other conjuration spell to contact him either. She was also in the anti-magic field when she was with Aster. So if Eugene was the one who murdered William Frege, was he acting independently? No, that can't be possible. How could Eugene have carried out this plan independently? He also involved murdering William during the lockdown and destroying as well. Eugene might be smart for a monkey, but a normal monkey wouldn't have known how to identify and destroy William's will, even if Beatrice had somehow trained him to do all this beforehand. Beatrice framed... Eugene stole the armbands of intellect? Okay. Were the armbands of intellect. No, it couldn't be. I discovered that the armbands of intellect had been stolen as well. And unlike the sword of spell eating, we still haven't found the armbands. When you look at the glass case where the armbands used to be, the thief didn't shatter the glass. Exactly. Moreover, the armbands were actually replaced with a very well-made replica. The magical locks on the case can be disabled. How are they normally disabled? They can be turned on and off using a spoken password. How many people know this password? Only myself. I personally oversee the transport of these items when they're removed. Only Hero knows the password, but someone could have overheard him saying it. Somebody that's constantly looking over his shoulder. You've made some ridiculous statements in the past, but there's no way the judge will even entertain this theory. You'll have to be smart about this. Your Honor, I think there's one more witness that can clear up this discrepancy once and for all. I believe he can prove the prosecution's case to the court. Really? I frankly find that hard to believe. Please, trust me, Your Honor. There's an element to this that we all aren't seeing. It's one that no one will believe. What do you have planned now? Very well. I'll give you one last chance, Mr. Cuthbert. But know that if your next witness fails to unveil any new information, I won't hesitate to end this trial. I understand, Your Honor. So I'm going to need you to bear with me for a moment. Bye. Your Honor, the defense calls Eugene Howardson to the stand. Never mind. I retract my earlier statement. I'll be passing my verdict. Wait, just bear with me for a moment. Mr. Cuthbert, I should find you in contempt of court for even suggesting this. You honestly think I'll allow a monkey to give testimony in my courtroom? I forgot how my voice worked for a second, my bad. Yeah, it sounds pretty out there, even for us. I'd like to remind the court of the nature of Harold's bond with Eugene. Eugene is a familiar. This means that Harold Howson can speak with him telepathically. This is absolutely... Show me the law that says an animal can't give testimony, Your Honor. It may be unprecedented, but it's not against the law. Very well. Your Honor, you can't be serious right now. Are you actually going along with this? Mr. Mora, I'm looking for any possible reason not to entertain this. But Cuthbert has a point. There are no laws against his proposal. So I suppose I must oblige his frankly insane actions for now. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's not as if this will reveal anything. I can't believe I'm saying this, but... Bailiff, please escort Lord Harrelson's monkey to the stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. I could do without the sarcasm, Miss Tamora. You know what? I think we're ending the episode now. I need a second. Just to look at this. There's just... Wouldn't be Ace Attorney, right? Without one of the... Wasn't the dragon I was hoping for, but you know what? We'll take it. See you next episode, and I guess we'll prosecute this monkey.